The conference room on the 41st floor had glass walls on 3 sides, so that everyone walking past could see the investors seated around the table before they were even introduced. It was 8:52 in the morning. The pitch started at 9 o'clock, and Marissa Delgado was on her knees behind a leather chair. Wiping a coffee ring off the carpet that someone had left the night before, she heard him before she saw him. "Can you move faster? I need this room in 6 minutes, and I don't need it smelling like cleaning spray." Dorian Castle did not look at her when he said it. He was scrolling through his phone, rehearsing numbers under his breath, adjusting his cufflinks with the irritation of a man who had built a company from nothing and had long since decided that nothing was other people's problem now. He was his firm Verasync was 6 minutes from a pitch that could bring in $40 million, and somewhere in that building, a woman he had never once looked at directly was the only person who could save it. Marissa said nothing. She had learned, in 11 months on the night into morning shift at Verasync's headquarters, that saying nothing was usually the fastest way through a room. She wheeled her cart to the door and glanced back once, not at Dorian, but at the screen behind him, where the product demo glowed on a 60-inch display, a medical diagnostics dashboard, patient vitals scrolling in soft blue lines. She stopped half a second longer than she meant to, then she left, because the room was not hers. And neither was the 6 minutes. What she knew, and what he was about to lose, would collide within the hour. Marissa was 50. She had a narrow face, silver threading through dark hair pinned back, and hands that moved with the efficiency of someone who'd once done far more demanding work. Nobody at Verasync was paying attention. She wore a gray uniform polo with the cleaning company's logo above the pocket, and she had worked that floor for 11 months. Arriving at 5 a.m. and leaving before most employees finished their second coffee, 14 years earlier. She had been Dr. Marissa Delgado, a biomedical engineer who spent 9 years designing patient monitoring systems for a hospital network in Ohio. She had led a team of 6 and held a plaque somewhere for an algorithm that cut false cardiac alarms by nearly 40%. Then her husband got sick, and the caregiving ate the career. And by the time he died, 2 years of chemotherapy, 2 years of hospital corridors she now recognized in her bones. No team waited for her, no severance beyond what dignity allowed, and a resume with a gap recruiters treated like a warning label. 41 applications, 3 interviews, 0 offers. The cleaning job came from a woman at her church who said it was steady, and steady was what Marissa needed most, more than she needed anyone to know who she used to be. She never told anyone ever, not because she was ashamed, because she had learned, slowly and painfully, that the story made people uncomfortable in ways that helped no one. Least of all her. At 8:58, 4 investors filed into the glass room. Dorian shook their hands with the warmth of a man who needed something. The pitch began exactly on time. Marissa was 2 floors down, restocking a supply closet, when her supervisor radioed that the 41st floor needed her back, a spill near the elevator bank. 5 minutes. She was pushing her cart past the glass wall when she heard the voice rise. Not panic exactly. The particular strain of a man watching something go wrong in front of the people whose money he needed. "I don't understand. It was working an hour ago." On the 60-inch screen, the demo had frozen. Worse than frozen. The patient vitals dashboard, the one Marissa had glanced at 40 minutes earlier, was displaying a heart rate of 214 beats per minute on a simulated patient profile. Holding steady, no alert, triggered, no alarm sounding. 2 for investors who did not know medicine. It looked like a hiccup, a glitch, something an engineer could fix by lunch. Marissa knew exactly what it was, and knew it wasn't a hiccup at all. She should have kept walking. She told herself that, even as her feet stopped. If you believe expertise has no uniform and dignity wears no title, please like this video, subscribe to Kindness Tales, and share this with someone who needs to believe in people again today. Dorian was talking fast now, the way people talk when covering a hole instead of filling it. It's a rendering issue, purely cosmetic. The underlying logic is it's not cosmetic. The words left Marissa before she had fully decided to say them. Every head in the glass room turned. Dorian turned last and slowest, his expression somewhere between confusion and the beginning of real anger. The specific anger of a powerful man interrupted, in front of money, by someone he had told to leave the room 6 minutes ago. "Excuse me?" Marissa's hands were still on the cart. She could have apologized, wheeled herself back into invisibility. Instead, she looked at the screen, not at Dorian, and said quietly, "Your alarm threshold is reading the rate correctly. It's not triggering because your algorithm is filtering it as sensor noise. The smoothing window is too wide, 10 seconds, maybe more. A real cardiac event that fast would never get past a threshold like that. It's not the dashboard, it's the alert logic underneath it." The room went silent in a different way than it had gone silent before. One of the investors, an older woman with sharp eyes who had said almost nothing, leaned forward. "Say that again." Marissa did slower, explaining in plain language why a smoothing window built to reduce false alarms would strip out exactly the kind of spike that mattered most in a real patient. The sudden, violent kind. The kind that killed people if nobody heard it in time. She had built systems to solve precisely this problem, in precisely this field, for 9 years. Dorian stared at her, not with anger anymore, but with the disorienting shock of a man realizing that the woman he'd waved out of a room like furniture had just diagnosed. In 90 seconds, a flaw his engineering team had missed for 3 weeks. "How do you know that?" he said. Not really a question. The unsaid sat heavier than anything spoken, years unexplained. Letters after her name unused, so long she'd almost stopped believing they were real. She almost said it then. The hospital, the team of 6, the plaque in a box. Her husband's name? It rose in her throat and she let it sit there, because some things are not owed to a room full of strangers, even when the truth would help. "I used to build these," she said. That was all. The investor with the sharp eyes did not let it go. Built what? Exactly where? And so, standing beside a cleaning cart in a glass conference room with 4 investors and a CEO staring at her, Marissa Delgado said her name in full for the first time in 11 months. In the hospital network in Ohio, in the 9 years, and the 40% reduction in false cardiac alarms that a peer-reviewed journal had once, briefly, cared about. Dorian said nothing for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised everyone in the room, including himself. He turned to his head of engineering, who had gone pale near the door, and said, "Pull the alert logic, now. We're not demoing broken safety software to anyone." Then he turned to Marissa. "Can you look at the code today? I have a shift. I'll cover it. Whatever it costs, I'll cover it." She looked at him, really looked, the way she hadn't let herself look at anyone in that building in 11 months, and said, "That's not what I need covered." What she needed, she told him an hour later, in an empty office, was 5 minutes where someone asked what she used to be before deciding what she currently was. He gave her more than that. By that afternoon, Marissa was in a room with the engineering team, walking them through the flaw line by line, and 2 junior engineers were taking notes, like students in front of someone whose credentials didn't need a badge to be real. By the end of the week, Dorian had created a new position, Senior Advisor, Clinical Systems Safety, and offered it to her directly. At a salary that made her sit down, when he said the number out loud, she didn't accept right away. She told him she needed to think, and he didn't push. When she returned 3 days later and said yes, she first asked whether the cleaning contract could stay in place. Same company, same people, not for her, but for the 2 women she'd worked beside for 11 months, who deserved to keep their jobs regardless of what happened to hers. Dorian kept the contract. He also wrote a letter to the hospital network in Ohio that had let her file go 2 years earlier without a phone call, telling them the woman they'd overlooked had just caught a safety flaw that could have reached real patients. He'd learned, in one 90-second conversation beside a coffee stain on gray carpet, that he'd spent years walking past exactly the kind of person his company was meant to protect. 6 months later, Marissa stood in that same glass room, no cart beside her, leading a walkthrough of the system's new safety architecture for engineers who called her Dr. Delgado without being told to. Through the glass wall, she could see the elevator bank where she used to wait for her supervisor's radio call. She did not look away. She had stopped needing to. If this story moved you, please like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to Kindness Tales for more stories of courage and grace. And tell us, has someone ever looked past what you did for a living to see who you actually were?